All right. Good morning, fellas. We are going to start talking about episode 4 today. We have a special guest today, Anthony Ray. He has a podcast called Dead Can We Talk? I love that intro with Tevin Campbell, remix of that. That's good. So we got him today, and we're going to be talking about how the workplace affects mental health today for men in general. And we have our special guest today, Anthony Ray. So we're going to go ahead and you're just going to kind of go ahead and introduce yourself and let the YouTube audience know who you are, what you do, and then we'll get the conversation started today. So go ahead and thank you for joining us today, Anthony.
Sure. First off, appreciate you guys for inviting me on the show. I always love this because I'm always on the other side being the interviewer. So it's not, too often that I get the opportunity to be on the other side as an interviewee. So appreciate you guys for inviting me on. I look forward to it. Like you say, I host a podcast called Dad Can We Talk? It's really a podcast surrounding fatherhood, family. I just really wanted to change the narrative surrounding fatherhood, especially Black fatherhood. I feel like the narrative surrounding Black fatherhood for a long time has always been a negative one. A lot of negative stereotypes throughout the years, which a lot of it I do understand with me growing up without my dad. I understand a lot of it, but I feel like it's changing. I see a lot of different things compared to my generation, my dad's generation. I think we're different today and it's showing. And so I said to myself, I want to show the world what I see every day and interview all these great dads and allow them to speak for themselves and tell their own stories. So I'm married, going on 11 years. In May, it'll be my 11th year anniversary. Shout out to my wife. Shout out to my little babies. I got 3 kids, ages 9, 7, and 6, and they keep me busy at all times. So, yeah, man, I literally live fatherhood every day, man, from the good to the bad, good and the ugly. So yeah, this is what I do, man. So I'm always looking forward, to being a guest on other podcasts because I just love having conversations, especially ones that are surrounded with men topics, man. I just think it's important. So appreciate you guys for getting into this media game, man, because we need more of us out here that's going to speak the real and really tell the truth about what's going on out here, with men, and allowing men to have a safe space to talk and speak, man. So appreciate you guys for the work that y'all are doing too.
Yeah, we appreciate you too. So, like we said today, is we're going to be talking about how the workplace affected mental health for men. So, I'll go just kind of go ahead and just describe like some of the experiences that as a man that maybe you had to go through, on your job that maybe affected your mental health, whether it's on your podcast or if you worked a full-time job before, whatever criteria you want to give us, we'll be happy to accept.
Man, and I think this is one of those topics that's huge. I don't think it's talked about enough. Mental health. People talk about heart health. We talk about gut health. We're gonna talk about everything else. All the other healths.
Except for mental.
That this up here, man, this is gonna affect every other health. And there's statistics to show that, like your mental health can literally affect every other thing that you do. If you're not right up here, man, it can send signals to your body and it affects your body. It affects, at times I'm always thinking about how, I'm so tired a lot of times in my body. At times I'm so tired physically because I'm tired mentally, so that's just it's an important thing. And for years, maybe probably since 2007, I've been working in warehousing. I've worked at UPS warehouse. I worked at another warehouse called Exact Tech, which was like dealing with surgical tools and stuff like that. I worked at Dollar General warehouse. Uh, and currently I'm at Walmart warehouse, where I've been here coming up in May. It'll be 7 years.
Okay.
And for the last 7 years, man, I'm trying so hard to get out of warehousing. Um, it's rough, it's rough on the body and the position that I work in, as an order filler. It's the most physical position in the warehouse. So you gotta be, maintain your body, because you're literally working with your body all day for 10 hours a day. Some people, if you work on weekends, 12 hours a day. And it's rough. And with me having 3 kids, like I said, at home, um, I just got my bachelor's degree in 2021, December
Congrats.
21. So I'll tell you guys about this. Through that experience, that was probably the most intense mental experience I've ever went through. I started school July 2019, and I was going to school full time online.
Okay.
So I was going to school full time. I was working a full time job throughout the week, 4 days a week. Um, 3 children, all under the age of 10. A full time husband. That's a job in itself. If you know what
For
I'm
sure.
talking,
Absolutely about that.
if you know what I'm talking about, that's a
Yeah,
job
that
in
ain't no lie
itself.
right there, for sure.
And so, and then and I was still trying to build my podcast. I was working on building my podcast from ground up. So I was building a whole entire brand, this Dad Can We Talk brand. I was building that. I did my own artwork, created my own logos. I do my own editing. I do my own recording, producing, and I do all my setting up guests. I do everything with the podcast. It's literally a one-man show right now. So in the midst of doing all of that, still have to go to work every day. And I work this physical job. And at times when I would get off work, come home, get the kids, do whatever I need to do with them, and worry about studying and doing homework and taking quiz and tests and all of that stuff. And then got to find time for my wife at the end of the night.
Man,
And
that's a lot.
trying to maintain, my own sanity. Man, it took it all. Honestly, I almost lost my marriage through this. Felt like at times I almost lost myself, and not to forget, at that time I was also doing ministry. I was the assistant pastor at my church. So
you was doing pretty much a lot of work. All at once like that. Okay.
Man,
that's a heavy plate to carry, man. That's really a heavy plate to carry.
So it was burdensome, man. So I'm dealing with everyone else's problems. People at the church asking me questions and this and that, and then being in the community doing work and trying to keep up with my kids and trying to keep up with my wife and trying to continue to be productive at work and also make these grades that I need to get, because this is my 3rd time at college. And I'm like, I can't fail this time because I just can't do that. Like I'm trying to create a better way for my family, for me. And man, it was rough, man. At times I ended up leaving my church in 2020 behind a lot of that stuff, because I felt like I just started feeling like people weren't understanding me. I felt like I gave my all and sacrificed for so many people, and I started feeling like no one was ever worried about me, and what I had going on.
And that's right.
That's the part of the thing that people when we talk about, right, is men don't have that outlet. Like we give and we give, but then when it's our turn, people are like they look at you a certain type of way. Like, well, you're supposed to be strong. Like you're supposed to be able to handle all of this. And I'm sure, especially doing ministry on the outside, because you taking it for people, you showing that strong face, like, okay, I'm here for you, whatever you need. But on the inside, you, like you said, you struggling because you're going through a lot. So I know that must have been devastating. That was a hard choice to leave the church, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely rough. And, I maintained my faith, but I did struggle. Still, to this day, still, struggling with a lot of things, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, really feel like I'm trying to crawl myself. Because I honestly felt like I lost myself a lot through this whole, maybe it's 2023, the last 4 years, and not to mention also in 2020, my wife and we were in the process of buying our first home. So, man, for the last 4 years, man, I have at times, I don't know if I'm coming or going. Honestly, like
You
I have
need stress for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, my friend.
man, and I try to deal with it, and I do have guys that are in my corner, friends. But for a period of time, I wasn't even really talking to them. Only time I would talk with people was my podcast. My podcast was literally therapy for me. So if you listen to episodes for the last few years, maybe that in between year, that was maybe the back end of 2020 going into 2021. And I was on the verge of divorce with my wife, all types of stuff, man. And so if you listen to the podcast episodes, I talk about a lot of that stuff in these episodes, sitting down with guys. And that was like my outlet. That was Dad, Can We Talk was literally the only outlet I had. I felt like where I could just release.
I'm glad you found something though, man. That's amazing.
Yes,
That's
sir.
great.
So could you just go in a little bit more detail about like your work experience, like in terms of like your mental health, like how it affected you? Like, when you say you work at Walmart, could you just like kind of like take us into how you like mentally how things was going there, or would you say things has gotten better, or would you say
I would
things have
say
gotten worse?
things have gotten a little better. I've learned how to deal with. So with my job, I work as an order filler at Walmart warehouse. So as an order filler, we basically fulfill the store orders. And so we have what we call mods, is like this work. It's like a work area where there's pallets, and stuff just full of freight. And I go through to each pallet and I order fill from that pallet. And so you basically work by yourself. In most cases, it's just you and these boxes. And so with me, I basically have 8 to 10 hours a day to think to myself while I'm working. And a lot of times I have earbuds in. I'm not supposed to wear earbuds, but that's the only way I keep my sanity. Because at times when I'm at work and I'm doing that, I got podcasts in my ears. I'm listening to different, it might be sports, it might be history, it might be religion, it might be music, it might be whatever. I'm keeping myself away. I don't want to be stuck in the warehouse. And so that's my escape, is listening to podcasts. I've been listening to podcasts since like 2016.
So that's your coping mechanism. I see. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's really my escape at times. So there's some days when I come in, like for instance, yesterday, I wanted to listen to music. I haven't really been too big on music in the last 2 weeks. I've just been really diving deep into podcasts. But I was just like, man, I want to hear some music. I want to hear some stuff that's going to uplift me. So, I came in yesterday morning and I had my Lecrae in my ears. And he's speaking what I need to hear. And he's talking all of these things. And it's making me think like, man, when I get home, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better when I get home with the babies. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to let anything get in my way, or I'm listening to songs about, guys talking about marriage. And I'm like, man, I'm going to do better. like I just feel like I can work on this, or whatever the case may be, whatever the topic of the song is. And that's the type of music I listen to, things that I can learn from and things that challenge my thought patterns. And at times at work, even though it's a physical job, so physically I'm being worn down. I'm 34 years old. And so I'm not getting any younger. I've been in warehousing for a long time now, and I'm 34, but my body feels 44, honestly.
Oh, I feel that one, Dad. I feel that statement every morning when I get up. I feel that statement, man.
Yeah, I can second that. 18 years in the military, I got aches and pains all over the place.
Ooh, man, it's real. And like I said, that stuff can literally affect you. It can affect you. Being tired in your body affects everything else, man. It's a thing. I don't know the whole scientifics of it, but a lot of times I look at it spiritually. I'm a spiritual person. And there's like this story in the Bible where it talks about Esau and Jacob. And it was a whole story about those two. And long story short, one comes in out from hunting and he's tired. The other's cooking. And he's like, hey, I'll give you a bowl of soup for this blessing. And the one who's tired, he's just like, oh, whatever. I ain't really worried about a blessing right now. I'm tired. And he gives up his blessing for a bowl of soup. And the blessing was like symbolism for, like, this is like an eternal type of thing. This is something that would affect you for generations. And you just sold that away for a temporary bowl of soup that's going to fill you up for the moment. And he didn't realize that until after he was, he did it. And he's like, dang, I really just messed up. And in that moment, we have moments like that in life when we're beaten down mentally, and we're not really thinking about, our family's future. We're not thinking about, our future, my future with my wife. And we make these temporary decisions that will affect our generations for years and years to come, and that's why I'm always so big on mental health and making sure I'm right mentally, because I know me, man, I make a lot of bad mistakes, man. And when I really look back on the mistakes that I make that are bad decisions, man, they usually happen when I'm tired. I haven't been sleeping, then I'm going to work, working this physical job. And when I come home, I'm just like, I'm so short-tempered. I'm not paying attention to things that are going on around me because all I'm thinking about is, man, eat me a sandwich real quick and go lay down,
Yeah, I can definitely relate to you, Anthony. Before I worked at Progressive Insurance, I had a manufacturing job, and I had to stand up on my feet for like 12 hours a day because the assembly line, it constantly keeps going back and forth, and you got to be ready to just get those bottles in line and stuff like that. And I just decided that after like maybe 2 months of working there, that I was just not going to work there anymore because it does something. I was definitely physically tired and mentally. Like I didn't want to do anything after I got home. I think I got like home at like at 10 o'clock at night. And I stayed and I got there like at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I was working long hours, and I can definitely relate to that it just mentally, physically drains you and mentally drains you. That you just don't want to, when people come at your door and so on, you just like, please go. That's something that a lot of people don't realize, that, when you get these jobs, you got to be cognizant of, your own mental health and how they affect you. Because not everybody, because you can get any type of job, but that doesn't mean that every job is going to be right for you. You know what I mean? You have to really be patient with yourself and say, what do I really want out of life? Because a lot of people are stuck at these jobs and they're miserable. And they don't know why they're miserable, or they can't really articulate to their partners or their, spouses or significant others that I'm just mentally tired. And, So I knew I had to quit that job because it wasn't fulfilling for me. Like I was just burned out. I mean, the money was good, but it's not worth my mental health, or it's not worth me being physically tired all the time. So that's just kind of my experience that I can relate to you. And hopefully, hopefully your podcast does blow up so you could just quit that job.
What do you guys feel about a decompression time when you come home? That's something I do and I've adopted over the last little while, where it's not a long time, but it helps me go from my work brain to my home brain. And it's hard because like when I get off work, I go pick up my kids and I have to be a dad, but I'm still very much in work mode. You know what I mean? So I'm short. I just want to get the job done. It's all about logic. My brain cannot do both jobs at the same time. I can't be a worker and a dad at the same time. It's just like impossible to do, right? I think with two different brains, totally, absolutely. When I think as a father, as I think as a worker, I work. I'm there to get the fucking job done now. Like, hurry up, get it out now. Make as much money as possible, right? When it comes to being a dad, I have to take my time. I have to take those seconds to listen to myself and listen to my children.
Man, I struggle with that so much. Man, I struggle with that so much, man. One of my biggest struggles is getting out of that mode, the work mode. I sometimes don't know how to, and I just noticed this maybe a few weeks ago. I was we had a disagreement with my wife, and she said something that really it hit me, and I was like, wow, I'm tripping. I said this. She said something about she was saying something about how she felt like she couldn't do something. And I was like, no, you can do it. You just choose not to do it. And she's like, no, I'm telling you, I just don't think this is something that you can do. And I'm like, man, I did it, and I start throwing out all this stuff that what I've done. And she's like, and that's you. Like, I'm not.
Yeah,
and,
that's you.
And I'm like, and I still was disagreeing, like, no, man, like if I did it, then what gives you the excuse if you can't do it and all this stuff? And then it really didn't hit me until the next day at work. Like I say, I'm just in that time where I'm by myself and I could think. And I'm like, man, I treat my baby so wrong. Like, at the job, I get it. I get at my job and my position, I'm a top producer, like literally the top producer. And I look at certain guys, like I would tell my supervisor at times, like, hey man, listen, don't hold him to the standards that you hold me to, because he probably will never be able to do the things that I do. And I don't want you guys to think just because I do it that they could do it.
Yep.
And that's how I talk at work. But when I come home, I tell my wife, well, if I can do it, then you can do it.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
It's so crazy. And it didn't hit me until she was saying that night. And I'm like, why can't I understand that at work, but I can't understand it at home? And mentally, it's like I almost feel like I'm on production at home. I'm trying to do everything so fast. I come home, I'm trying to hurry up and get done with the dishes. I'm trying to hurry up and sweep the floor. I'm trying to hurry up and fold clothes. I'm trying to hurry up and do all of these things. And I'm doing it in a way, and I'm fussing at my kids like, you're going too slow. You're not doing it like this. Mentally, I'm at work still.
Yeah, you're trying to get that job done, right? House needs to run. We need to get this chore done.
Exactly. Instead of just saying, hey man, you taking a step back, like, bro, it's really not that serious. It's some crumbs on the floor. Like, it's not dancing, but at work, that's the mindset.
Let me say, man, I just met you, bro, but I feel like we live in the same life. Man, let me tell you, when my son was born, right? So I had a 6-year-old. Well, she was 8. My daughter was 8 when my son was born. And my son had colic. He was allergic to milk. He had constipation. He had all these baby things going on. And I'm at this job where I'm trying to make connections and really trying to go for promotion. And I'm so focused. I'm like, work, 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 work. And my wife's at home with the baby. And and she, when I come home, she's like, all right, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. I'm like, okay, cool, blah, 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 blah. Same thing, like you said, like trying to get it done. Like I'm still in work mode. And then she's like, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't sweep. I'm like, why can't you sweep your home all day? Duh, she's on maternity leave. Like, but you don't think about that sometimes. You just like, she just had a whole baby, right? And I'm still like, man, come on, like help out. And then the same with my 8-year-old daughter. I'm like, I'm thinking she's like 13 in my head. You know, I look back to when I was raised as an 8-year-old, I was a bit more responsible and I could do things and stuff like that, but it's a different generation, right? And so she can't really do the things that I did as 8, but I'm still holding her accountable. And I'm like, come on, like we gotta do this, we gotta do that. So I can relax and chill. And so that's exactly what you said. Like I was looking at it all the wrong way. And luckily we survived through that tough time and now our marriage is okay. But yeah, that was a struggle, man. That, just like you were saying.
Yeah, it's real, man. You know, and I think, like you say, it's a blessing to even be able to recognize that, you know, because some people never get to that point to where they recognize, you know, like, dang, I'm tripping, you know, like this isn't something that I should be doing. Some people never get there. You know, some people never understand that, you know, I even talk to some guys about certain things like that, and they're just like, man, no, yeah, I can't go for that, because they just don't understand, you know. So I think it's just a blessing to even be able to understand, you know, what you're going through mentally and being able to you know, recall that type of stuff like that, you know. So I just think we got to continue to be aware and have conversations like this, because that allows us to it allows us to grow and makes us more conscious when you hear someone else talk about it, and then you realize, dang, I do the same thing.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Snapping at your kids and shit, you know, I do it all the time. And then when I'm out in public, I hear somebody else do it. I'm like, hey,
Yeah, man, bro.
you know, wait a minute. Last time I was out with my kids, I literally, you know, it's the exact same situation, man. We were walking out of the house and I snapped at my son, like, yo, grab your shit, let's go. And then 5 minutes later, we're at the store and some mom was saying the same thing to her kid. And I was like, damn, lady, chill the fuck out. No? And I literally, and I was like, oh, shit. Yo, buddy, I'm sorry, man. Like, sometimes I just don't get it, man. Like, you know, I'm a dad. I'm gonna mess up often. Man, I never had parents. Like, that's something maybe I should go into my background a little bit. Like, I never grew up with parents. My dad died when I was 5, and my mom was just super neglectful, never around, always working, right? So I was raised by myself or by my brother, who was super abusive. And you know, it was when I became a father, I thought that I knew what to do as a dad. And that wasn't the case at all. I didn't know anything about being a father. So that's something I try to teach my kids, is like make mistakes as often as possible, because then you're going to learn some lessons and do better in life, right?
All right. So Chris, I just wanted to kind of like throw it off to you now to see like what's some of your challenges that you face at the workplace that kind of like affected your mental health. Like, can you give us some experiences?
Yeah. So
your job.
I have an interesting kind of other side of the fence story. You know, Wayne and Anthony seem to have made it out of their struggles with their marriage and work and those tough times. I'm very much the opposite. You know, I was trying to build a business. Me and my wife were together for 10 years. At this point, we had 2 kids. She was a stay-at-home mom. I was trying to build my own welding business. And we were doing everything automatically for a lot of years. You know, we were both on autopilot. She was just an autopilot mom, and I was an autopilot worker, come home dad, you know, producing as much money as possible to try to get ahead in life. And I was struggling. It's really bad. I was a foreman of a welding shop, you know, operating, I think we had 4 guys at the time. And it was just so much, I had to give so much of my mental energy at work every day. And I would come home to a very stressful household, and I was never allowed time to just breathe for a minute. Other than my trip home, that was it. That was all that I got. My drive to work in the morning and my drive back home after work. That was the time I had to decompress and to change from work mode to dad mode. And back then, I was in nowhere the mental capacity to understand that I needed to do that. But I would get home and I would react in a way that was very not like me. It was just totally not the person that I was. I would snap at my wife, who I adored. Like I adored my wife. I would do anything for her. I would literally scrape the blood off of the path of my enemies in order for her to keep her